Oh, hello, and welcome once again. J76NY here, and welcome back to Sordland. And we have a lot to attend to in this episode, so we are going to get right into it and start visiting and reading reports here. Young Sword suspected of terrorist attack in Vessord. At approximately 1646 on Monday, a terror attack occurred in the Vessord city center during a rally by the left-wing CPS. The attackers, suspected to be working with the Young Swords or another organization connected to them, opened fire with an automatic rifle on the protesting civilians. 17 people were killed, including the attacker, who shot himself afterward. Witnesses testified that the rifle was hidden behind a newsstand. I guess we read about this in the newspaper at the end of the last episode. The local police are now wary of this tactic, and all newsstands will be inspected by the police before and during crowded rallies. Further investigations of the Young Swords are underway. Horrible mine disaster. Very timely that the mine would have a disaster when we're going to be faced with a choice of worker safety legislation. Coal mine has collapsed in Morble. Emergency response teams were dispatched immediately. Due to the sheer size of the disaster, additional manpower and supplies were requested from nearby cities. Initial investigations show that an underground fire has started due to the neglect in working situations by the Needham Mining Corporation. So it's Centralia, Pennsylvania in Sordland. Here we go. Young Sword member found decapitated. Oh, Jesus. The Estord Police Department has found a decapitated body in the abandoned house where the victim was later identified as Kurg Lanke, a high school teacher and member of the local Young Swords Cultural Center. The victim was discovered to be tortured with hot iron rods before his tongue was cut off. Police suspect the Red Youth are responsible for the incident. Damn. Don't mess around. Wow. Oh, look at the railway project. It's halfway done already. Let's see. Read the report on forms. Izaro Keebner, leader of the NFP, has announced today that the NFP is completely against any threshold. He specifically emphasized that this would lead to unwanted elements entering the assembly and that he is outright against any changes of the 10% threshold. I agree. Izaro Keebner, huh? Workers' Rights Bill nears completion. Workers' Rights Act of 1954, proposed by Albin Clavin and supported by Minister of Health Pascal Benawal, is being prepared for the first draft overview. Voices from the labor union showed strong signs of support, so I may actually want to throw my support behind this one. Albin Clavin is a member of our party. So, I may actually support this. Session dedicated, and I can't be seen to be doing nothing for Sordland at all. I'll put up the front of actually caring about this, and it'll help out in the future. Session dedicated to the bill in the Assembly proved contentious. The people that form the backbone of the Swordish economy will finally be fully protected by extensive laws. Franz Richter, leader of the PFJP, recently outlined their demands for the reform package. He declared that without the implementation of term limits and limited decrees, it would be very difficult for him and his party to stand behind a reform package. Okay? We are now going to prepare for the emergency decree. I was walking to my office. Today was the day to finally write the Emergency Act and order the execution of the decree. Talks with the leading figures of the old guard were fruitful, and the preparation for the emergency was already underway. I walked in the marble corridors of the palace, thinking about the huge decision I was going to make. My secretary greeted me at the entrance to my presidential office. Morning, Mr. President. Morning, Livia. How are you today, sir? I'm fine. It's good to hear. Paused before taking my coat. Looked like she had something on her mind. Mr. Rayne, it may not be my place to say this, but I'm wondering about your reasoning behind this emergency act. The people want reforms, and delaying them will only lead to more violence. You're right, sweetheart. It isn't your place. Understood, sir. I'll take your coat now. Olivia left to hang up my coat. Walked into my office and sat down. Not long after, Orso and Lucian arrived. Finally, you're here. Morning, Mr. President. Time to start the emergency period. Situation on the streets got worse after we last met. It's because Mr. Richter made it known that our administration is blocking the reforms. Many are protesting against that now, too. Regardless of who they are or what they support, the situation is clear. Let's see how we'll proceed with the President's decree. They placed the draft for the Emergency Act in front of me. Oh boy. Here we go. Section 1 of 3. In accordance with the Article 57 and 58 of the Constitution, the state bans and declares the following a national security threat, as they have been found to pose an existential threat for the Republic of Sordland and public security of its citizens. They can pick more than one. We're not going to pick the young swords because they're my peeps. Emergency Act is justified by the violent actions of the members of the Young Swords, including the shooting of Bernard Circus. Oh well. The Emergency Act is justified by the violent actions of the members of the Red Youth, including their plot for a communist revolution. Go. The Emergency Act is justified by the threatening acts of Bludish separatists as they cooperate with Rumburg to start a civil war in Sordland. Workers' Party of Bludia will be declared as the direct successor of the Bludish Freedom Party, and extension will be banned from politics and declared as a terrorist organization. Here we go. Section 2 of 3. On the basis of Article 58 of the Constitution, the following is ordered in defense against national security threats. Suspension of the right for peaceful protest. The right for peaceful protest will be suspended, and in extension, the freedoms to assemble and organize and the freedom of expression will be restricted. Police may use the necessary force to disperse crowds or prevent their gatherings. Yes. Detention without trial. Based on strong indications, if the person is suspected of crimes committed against internal and external security, but gathering of incriminating evidence is not possible, the suspect may be proposed to be detained until further notice. Oh, so we can, not only without trial, without evidence. Anyone we want. Sounds good to me. Increase police authority. Police use of force, orders for confiscation, as well as its rights to stop and frisk, are permissible beyond the legal limits otherwise prescribed. Why not? Section 3 of 3. On the basis of their acts of aggressive politics, interfering with the internal affairs and disrespecting the sovereignty of the Republic of Sordland, the state declares the severance of all diplomatic ties and denying entry to the citizens of the following nations. Oh, shit. The state will sever all its diplomatic ties with the United Contana as they pose a national security threat. Those are the communists. Arcasia. We're going to go with United Contana and Rumburg. Should I do it? Good. You're about to make constitutional changes to Sordland. Are you sure about your decision? Yes. After I made the final changes to the decree, I showed it to them. They read the decree and discussed it amongst themselves. Lucian spoke afterwards. It's like the only thing left is to sign and declare the order, sir. I'm afraid that this will create further problems for our administration, especially by declaring the Bludish separatists as a threat. We should expect more violence against Bludish citizens in general. What are you worried about? They're a national security threat. You can't allow Bludish people to support terrorist organizations. They should have known better. Lucian looked at the decree again. What's important here is that we're taking these steps to fight against the commies. Going against United Contana and banning the Communist Party will definitely make us an enemy of the Contanan Security Pact. Well, it's a little late. Can't take this lightly. Much as I despise Arcasia and have reason to believe that they're behind all this mess, Mr. President decided not to act against them. Things come to the worst, we'll have their protection, Mr. Galat. There's no reason to be afraid of those communists. Let's instead focus on what we will be doing. With the order of this decree, we should be able to detain anyone who is suspected for a crime. Or anyone we want, seems we don't have to provide proof. Why not? I'll personally lead an investigation against Mr. Richter as soon as any other leads come up. We'll be able to get rid of him. Looking forward to that. Luckily, the police will have the authority to deal with the threats now. Well, I think suspension of protests and gathering of a crowd will be very tough on the budget of the police, and the people will not like this, especially the reformist. That's precisely who we are against, Mr. Galad. In any case, what's left to do is declare the emergency and get it accepted in the Supreme Court, sir. You should plan your speech for the declaration. This will be a big moment for Sordland. We'll be in touch, Mr. President. The Supreme Court will be waiting for the declaration. I expect the court to fulfill their promise and a new era begins. Is that right? It seems so. I don't think he's too happy about this. We all shook hands and they left the room. All right. See what the radical has to say about this. Nothing. Rayne focuses on internal peace. Our sources informed us that the talks within the Reform Committee isn't going fruitful among the chaotic situation in Sordland. Maroon Palace is speaking of plans to focus on immediate matters like defending our nation from internal and external threats. We hope that in difficult times like now, that with riots and attacks against the state, our need as a people will hopefully be answered and peace will prosper in Sordland again. I sense the work of Mr. Caranti in this new article here. Seems a little too in favor of me, considering I'm about to basically wipe out individual liberty. Preparations underway for the annual Benfey Festival. That time of year again, the largest cultural festival in the entire Sordland, Benfey Festival, has begun its preparation. This year's venue was picked to be the newly built Benfey High Art Center with a total capacity of 8,000 people. Those who do not have a ticket, and as always enjoy the events that span the whole city, especially after the recent events. We can't wait for 4 days of panels, theater, plays, exhibition, and music. Okay. I've declared a national emergency to respond to different threats. Wait. And this right here, Red Youth Band, WPB Band, Emergency Decree, BFP Band. What's next? Declaration of the Emergency Act. I'd recently signed the Emergency Act, which created a ruckus in the Sordish police force and the Grand National Assembly. Now it was time to make a speech in the Assembly and declare the emergency in public. I walked with quick steps in the corridors of the Grand National Assembly, giving my greetings to the people I encountered on my way towards the Parliamentary Hall. When I entered the hall, the Assembly was in complete chaos with shouting and cursing between the parties. There was a heavy argument about a proposal made by an MP from NFP. Oratory. I took my seat inside the special area reserved for the ministers. Gloria was shouting from her seat at the center of the hall as she hit the gavel 3 times, with each strike heavier than the one before. Order, order! I saw Kizaru Keebner standing up from his seat and shouting towards the members of the PFJP. Mr. Keebner, calm yourself. Show respect to the procedures of this assembly. Despite her efforts, the arguments continued for a couple of minutes before everyone took back to their seats and finally went quiet. Mr. Keebner, next time I will tell you to do so, when I either take your seat or leave the hall, so we can proceed with the procedures of this assembly and continue our duties. Some MPs from the NFP side shouted back at her in protest. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me to continue. She pointed at me with her hand. We have the president here with us today. He has an important declaration to make. The assembly fell silent. The president has the floor. I walked to the stand as loud clapping started in the USP side. Ladies and gentlemen of the Grand National Assembly of Sordland, I am here today to present an important decision of the state concerning the recent troubling developments in Sordland. Focus on the Bludish Friedland. Sordland has long been plagued by Bludish separatist groups inside our borders. Their threat, however, has never been greater. They have been heavily arming themselves with military aid from Rumburg against Sordland. I brought attention to the threat of Rumburg. With the armament of the BFF, Rumburg has shown a clear aggressive stance against Sordland. They pose a major national security threat for our country. We must stay strong and be ready for their treacherous actions. Applause came from the NFP seats. Blame foreign powers for supporting. Foreign powers are to be blamed. They are disrespecting the sovereignty of our nation and agitate and support these extremist groups against our country in hopes of toppling our government to establish a puppet state. The state will now react swiftly to these threats. The police will be given increased authority. Surveillance capacities of the state will be increased. Suspects will not require a trial to be detained. Police will be given increased authority in regards to their use of force. Searching civilians in order for confiscation will be permissible beyond their legal limits for the duration of the emergency period. Surveillance capacities of the state will be increased beyond their limits until further notice. The right to assemble and protest will be suspended for the duration of the emergency. All citizens are expected to abide by the law, and the police is given permission to use force against assembled crowds. Suspects will not require a trial to be detained if said crime endangers the state and the well-being of its citizens. In accordance with Article 57 and 58 of the Constitution, the state holds the right to order for these measures to be taken in a situation of emergency like we have today. On the basis of said articles, I hereby declare a state of emergency and order the Emergency Act's swift execution. There was a loud reaction from the Assembly. Hansen Leckie, a Bludish MP who is now considered a terrorist, was regarded as the leader of the independents, jumped from his seat and started shouting at me. This is fascism. Flavia. I just said the whole sentence in one word, so there you go. President has not finished. I had found time to take a breather during the loud commotion. With some respect, be quiet. I continued among applause from the USP seats. In accordance with the Emergency Act, Sordland will sever all diplomatic ties with Rumburg for their treacherous actions. We'll be responding with an embargo. Same measures will also be taken against United Contana. Sordland will stand alone if needed. Whatever the case may be, we must be strong. Paused and a look at the assembly. Must finally be brave and strike down this red threat. I ask everyone to understand our situation. Today we must fight for Sordland. USB seats applauded. We will eliminate all who oppose the state. We go. I assure you that this will not be long-lasting. The state will swiftly address the situation. The Bluds issue will finally be addressed. Bluds separatists will soon be eradicated. Well, we've been pounding on the Bluds the whole time, so here we go. The Bludish issue will finally be addressed. I saluted the crowd. For a strong Sordland. I was going to go with the for the legacy of Saul, but kind of wanting to make my own way, and I am now the one that's in control, and I'm hopefully going to stay that way for a very long time. So the assembly roared with all kinds of different reactions. Most of the USB members applauded. All of the opposition yelled in protest as I left the stand. Thank you for the announcement, Mr. President. Sounds of protest gradually increased as I walked towards my seat. Hans and Lecky started yelling at me again. You were just like Sol. Leave Bludish people alone. Gazaro stood up from his seat and yelled back at Monson. You live in Sordland, Mr. Lecky. You cannot fight against the country and expect it not to react. Gloria started hitting the gavel again when the situation escalated further. We will get a fistfight. Gentlemen, when will you learn to behave like adults? I left the hall when Gloria diverted their attention back at her. After the heavy... I got a STEAM achievement for that. Sweet. After the heavy reaction I got, I walked back to the palace in silence. Bet the radical has something to say now. Lots going on in the country. As the police state grows. Emergency decree started to be implemented. After the declaration of a new emergency decree, the implementation of new laws has begun. Government workers, the Sordish Police Force, Sordish Armed Forces, and other agencies have been informed of their next steps, while some departments were restructured to accommodate new requirements. Okay. Leaders of the Worker Party of Bloody are arrested. Sordish Intelligence Agency reported that the leader of the WBP, Fatih Ejal, pitcher, here, he's a criminal now, was seen in direct contact with an ex-member of the banned Bludish Freedom Party. Ejal was later detained on suspicion of working with the BFF. Hours after his arrest, the ex-BFP member protested the incident and declared that he will join the BFF and bring many Bludish people with him if the state continues to detain innocent Bludish people. This move comes right after the declaration of the new emergency decree confirmed suspicions of their connections. Both men were arrested on terrorism charges. There we go. Anything else? Oh. Go. Red Youth leader publicly announces they will not recognize emergency decree. The leader of the Red Youth has publicly announced through local newspaper that they, I'm sure that's up there, probably in the Radical, that they will not recognize the emergency. He has also declared that the Red Youth is not and never was a terrorist organization. In response, known Red Youth headquarters were promptly raided and the terrorists there arrested by police. Sordland declares state of emergency. Effective immediately with the powers given to him as president of Sordland, Anton Rayne has announced that an emergency will be declared for the entirety of Sordland. The state also declared a trade embargo on United Contana and Rumburg. I think I just reversed my original intentions of trading with United Contana. Or being buddies with them, or whatever. But who cares? Commies. Suck it. In a televised address on Wednesday, Rayne said the decision was made following the bloody events that broke out across Sordland. And this goes through all of that. The decision comes as no surprise due to the recent escalation in the violence around the country, many of which were suspected to be of Rumburgian and United Contana in origin. with the expansionist northern power neighboring our border and meddling in our affairs together with the communist superpower United Contana, our security forces and the military were given a debrief on how to deal with the situation, and preparations were underway to implement the emergency security decree that was signed by President Rayne. Emergency declared. Emergency has been declared all over Sordland, and the announcement has been conveyed through all official channels. Frankly, it was about time. Emergency declared. Facing a worried nation on the brink of potential dramatic spike in political violence. See if it says anything different here. State will swiftly take care of the situation and eliminate all terrorist threats. We ask our citizens to be patient until the state reassures us that we can continue with our lives as normal, which will be very soon, says Lily's. Democracy on hold. President Anton Rayne has announced that the country will be placed under a state of emergency in response to the ongoing political violence. As Rayne started to warm his seat in the Maroon Palace, we can now see him for what he really is. An authoritarian like his predecessor, Colonel Sol. Yes! I'm an authoritarian! Just like Sol. The new emergency act serves only to destroy the opposition against the president, who the state claims to be enemies of the state. A sick move against the peaceful protesters on the street. They're beheading people, you freaks. All right. Emergency will destroy our economy. Uh-oh. As the emergency was declared today, the effects in the Sordland trade have already been seen. Relatively quick dive in the Sordland Ren's value doesn't need any point to be proven. Sordland is an unstable trade partner with its current state. Declaring emergencies is not exactly a good way to invite investors to your country. There are a few possibilities. Either President Rayne doesn't care about his fellow countrymen, or he doesn't care about the economy, or both. International response to the emergency declaration in Sordland. Alliance of Nations has reported that they are watching Sordland with worry. Asian President Dwight Walker condemned the declaration of emergency, as well as events leading up to the event. While United Contana leader Malyanev said that this is not the sign of a good leader. Among the region's regional neighbors of Sordland, only the Republic of Wayland seem to be approving of, well, great. You know, I should have... These guys, I should have. I didn't, but I should have. Well, nobody likes my decision to declare a state of emergency. That's perfectly okay with me. Do not care. It's not their country. It's mine. What's this? Dinner with the business council members. Well, I think I'm going to hold off on that until next episode. So Sordland's now a police state, thanks to me. And we are way away from being friends with anybody. Except for Wayland, which sucks. Wayland really sucks. I don't like them. But they're our friends, so I guess, you know, whatever. My country, I'll do what I want. Anyway, if you liked the episode, hit the like button. Have any thoughts? Leave those in the comments below. Want to follow along and see how long I can get through with before I get assassinated, impeached, or couped out of power. Or if I can turn this into Rayneland. There we go, Rayneland. That's what I'm going to call it. Rayneland. Want to see if that actually happens, hit the subscribe, and we will see you our next episode. Hey, 76NY saying thank you very much for watching, and have yourself a very good day.